Hey everybody, my name is Esther and I have young onset Parkinson's disease. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the follow. So I'm going to explain something that has taken me a very long time to understand, and that is the differences between dyskinesia, dystonia, disease progression, and medication side effects. Again, I am not a doctor. I'm just a person that wakes up and goes to bed every morning with this crap disease. And I've learned a few things along the way in my journey, but we're all very different. So my takeaway is always this: educate yourself and listen to your own body. But at the end of the day, I'm an expert in Parkinson's. That's just the way it goes. It's not a degree or expertise I ever wanted to have, yet here we are. So I'm going to share some things with you. Number one, dyskinesia versus dystonia. Dyskinesia is always defined as like a rhythmic movement. Dystonia is described as a twisting. Now, I actually got into an argument with my movement disorder specialist about this because my dystonia presented in my shoulder. And he was saying, well, that doesn't sound like Parkinson's. But I don't need to argue about it and I don't need to explain it because I know it's part of my Parkinson's. I know based on when it started, how it feels, and unfortunately, what I think it's going to become. So if you look at a lot of people that have had the disease for a long time, especially women, a lot of these symptoms that I have, I cannot help but notice are more common in younger women. There's an eventual kind of pulling in and twisting of your neck. And I see it. I've seen it in people. And this tightness, that was one of my first symptoms, is unfortunately having the potential to become that. Just because it's not twisting now, hit me up in 10 years. Unfortunately. I mean, we're trying to fight it, guys. I get that. I'm going to work out, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to do my thing. But that, I feel, is where that comes from for me. So I've had this tightness, and that's how it starts, and pain for a decade now. And it's only really relief for me is exercise. The medication helps, and I'll get into that in a minute, but this is not considered dystonia by at least that original MDS that I had, because it doesn't twist. But I know I have it in my toes because they do. So to me, it's like this. We all start with the tightness, right? I mean, that's one of what we call the cardinal symptoms. So we all start with that muscle tightness. I'm not gonna say all, but most of us. Caveats, don't come at me at the comments. But I get it in my neck and I get it in my calf. And I wake up to it every single morning. Now, when I started taking medication, carbidopa, levodopa, now I'm on the patchy patch. And I haven't taken any carbidopa, levodopa yet this morning, just the patch, because as I've said in previous posts, the patch doesn't control my tremor, unfortunately, but the carbidopa, levodopa does. So I'm in this constant battle of do I want the side effects that come when I take the carbidopa, levodopa to offset this, but it's a trade-off. So I can get rid of this in 45 minutes if I take a carbidopa, levodopa. But it's going to give me, guess what? Levodopa-induced dystonia, which is a different kind of dystonia. And I feel it in my body. And I feel like we don't talk about it enough. It's not part of the progression. I'm not saying dystonia is not part of progression. I'm saying the kind of dystonia that I get is different from this when I take the meds. And I felt it. I've been on 3-4 different meds now. I've felt it different in every one that I take. So when I take the carbidopa, levodopa, when I hit peak, I feel is when I get the claw in my hand, and when I get tightness in my groin. So I get a tightness right here, and it's like somebody just goes, "Rrr, rrr," and that impacts my gait. It makes my leg want to pull out. So the leg thing is a whole nother can of worms. I get dyskinesia in my foot, in my leg, and it is very classic dyskinesia because it is that rhythmic dancey dance. I actually made a video about that earlier in the year where I likened it to the tango. And it is. I mean, I could set it to music. That is classic dyskinesia. If you look up the different types, you'll see that there's a lot of variation in it. But for me, that's how it presents. But it's so hard to like differentiate it all because, for example, my rigidity, my tightness in my neck is also, I know, tied to the fact that my arm doesn't swing. So it wants to stiffen up. So swinging my arm, doing things, exercises that swing my arm, help that. When I take the medication, it relieves this. It does. I feel the muscle release like bada bing, bada boom. It makes me very happy. But I'm gonna get this thing, the tightness in here, which is gonna be its own problem. So it's trade-offs. Why is this even important? Whether it's dystonia, tightness, rigidity, dyskinesia. I'll tell you why. Because vocabulary is important. If I go back to my doctor and I say, I have this or I have that, and they disagree, it's because how they respond to it is going to be different based on what it is. Because they know in their little toolbox what medications tackle what things best. But again, we're all different. So when I go back to my new MDS and I'm like gonna be like, Nupro made my tremor worse, but it helped the dystonia in my neck. You guys have seen that video I made where it's literally like spasming and twisting. That's what that is. You know, we all, not all of us, but I mean, I still have what are called vesiculations. I still have like random muscle spasms. And that does generally go away with medication too. But sometimes I just get it out of nowhere. The vocabulary of this in the long term, to me, doesn't matter because it's always going to come down to a medication adjustment and me being in my body, being in my space, listening to how I'm affected by it, tracking it. Tracking it is so important. And then that back and forth with my doctor. But this is a conversation I had with my MDS like day one, because I would come back and be like, is this this? I think it's this. This is this. And he got so frustrated with me. He was like, I don't know. I don't have the answers for you, Esther. I don't live in your body. And when we had that discussion, it was like such a light bulb moment, because it's when I realized that it's really up to me to know what I'm feeling, relay that information back, try the different medication combinations, and go from there. But I don't just rely on the medication. I'm gonna get on the treadmill and I'm gonna work out. And this is gonna get better. And this is gonna get looser. And this is gonna get looser. And this is gonna feel stronger. And I do that every single day because there is no perfect medication. All of them have side effects for me that are as bad, if not worse, than the disease itself. And that's why we need more people in research, more people pushing exercise, and more community voices lifted up. So I hope you'll join me, because 2025 is going to be the year that we join our voices together and demand change. I hope this helps.